beyond the cultic tendency in religion and spirituality and in secular society. In my reality teaching, I speak critically of the conventional or childish and otherwise adolescent orientation of guru cultism. Such cultism is a tendency that has always been present in the religious and spiritual traditions of humankind. Anciently and in the present time, both true spiritual masters and ordinary wisdom teachers have been cultified and thereby made the merely fascinating object of a self-contained popular movement that worships the spiritual master as a parent-like saviour, while embracing very little of the significant wisdom teaching of the spiritual master. The error of conventional cultism is precisely this childish and otherwise adolescent and altogether ego-based orientation to fascination with spiritual masters, wisdom teachers, God ideas, myths, sacred lore, inherited beliefs, traditional propaganda, and psychophysical or merely body-mind based mysticism. And the cultic tendency in religion and spirituality is the essence of what is wrong with conventional religion and spirituality. The problem is not that there is no real God, or that there are no true wisdom teachings, or that there are no true spiritual masters, or that there should be no devotion to any true spiritual masters. The problem with conventional religion and spirituality is the same as the problem of all ordinary life. The problem is the childish and otherwise rather adolescent egoism that is the basis of all forms of ordinary existence. Yet, unenlightened or otherwise not yet most perfectly enlightened people are ego-possessed. Therefore, egoity is the disease that all the true spiritual masters come here to cure. Unfortunately, those who are merely fascinated by spiritual masters are, typically, those who make, or at least transform, the institutions of the way of their spiritual masters. And true practitioners of any religious or spiritual way are very hard to find or develop. Therefore, religious and spiritual institutions tend to develop along lines that serve, accommodate, and represent the common egoity. And this is why the esoteric true teachings of true spiritual masters tend to be bypassed and even suppressed in the drive to develop the exoteric cult of any particular spiritual master. The relationship to me that is described by me in my reality teaching is not an exoteric cultic matter. It is a profound esoteric discipline necessarily associated with real and serious and mature ego-surrendering, ego-forgetting, ego-transcending, and divine guru-oriented practice of the radical way or root process of realizing real a causal God, which is reality itself and truth itself. Therefore, I am critical of the ego-based or self-saving and self-guruing practices of childish and otherwise adolescent and altogether merely exoteric cultism. The common religious or spiritual cult is based on the tendency to resist the disciplines of real and really ego-transcending practice and to opt for mere fascination with extraordinary or even imaginary phenomena, which are invariably not understood in truth and in reality. Apart from the often petty demand for the observation of conventional rules, generally relative to social morality or merely social religion, the cult of religious and spiritual fascination tends to become righteously associated with no practice, that is, with the even official expectation that there be no real or truly right and full practice of religious and spiritual disciplines, especially of spiritual and meditative disciplines of an esoteric kind. Likewise, The cult of religious and spiritual fascination tends to be equally righteous about maintaining fascinated faith or indiscriminate and even aggressive belief in the merely parent-like divine status of one or another historical individual, God idea, religious or spiritual doctrine, inherited tradition, or force of cosmic nature. Religious and spiritual cultism is, thus, a kind of infantile collective madness, and such madness is equally shared by secular cultists. In every area of popular culture, including politics, the sciences, the arts, the communications, media, and even all the agencies and institutions of conventional officialdom relative to human knowledge, belief, and behavior, religious and spiritual cults, and likewise all secular cults, breed Pharisaism, or the petty righteousness of conventional thinking. Religious and spiritual cults breed substitution myths, or the belief that the personal transcending of egoity is, both generally and ultimately, impossible, but also unnecessary because of what God or some master or even some priest has already done. Indeed, religious and spiritual cults, and likewise all secular cults, breed even every kind of intolerance and the chronic aggressive search for exclusive social dominance and secular power. Religious and spiritual cults are characteristically populated by those who are, generally, neither inclined toward nor prepared for the real right practice of religious and spiritual discipline, but who are, and always seek to be, glamorized and consoled by mere association with the holy things and beliefs of the cult itself. The error of religious and spiritual cultism and of ego-based culture in general must be examined very seriously, such that the error is truly rooted out from within the cult and the culture itself, and not merely, and with equally cultic cultural righteousness, criticized from without. Cultism of every kind, both sacred and secular, must be understood to be a kind of ritualized infantilism, bound to egocentric behavior and to the embrace of insiders only, and to intolerance relative to all outsiders. The cultic tendency, both sacred and secular, brings about and has always brought about great social, cultural, and political trouble, as has been seen in this late time or dark epoch in the development of worldwide conflicts based on the exclusive or collectively egocentric orientation of the many grossly competitive religious traditions, political idealisms, and national identities. All cults, whether sacred or secular, thrive on indulgence in the psychology and the emotional rituals of hope, rather than on actual demonstration of really ego-transcending action. Therefore, when all egos meet, they strive and compete for the ultimate fulfillment of searches and desires, rather than cooperate with truth itself, reality itself, or real a causal God, and in a culturally valued and rewarded mood of fearless tolerance and sane equanimity. Clearly, this cultic tendency in religion and spirituality, and the egoic and thus cultic tendency in life in general, must become the constant subject of fundamental human understanding, and all of humankind must constantly be put to school to unlearn the method of egocentrism, non-cooperation, intolerance, and dis-ease. Da, da, da.